Title: The Lindbergh Kidnapping. A cry that was never heard. Narration style: slow, emotional, suspenseful tone, soft, haunting. Piano music begins in the background. This is the story of a silent scream, one that echoed across a nation, yet no one could save the child at its heart. It was the night of March 1st, 1932. America was still reeling from the Great Depression, but at a quiet estate in Hopewell, New Jersey, lived a family who had once inspired a country. Charles Lindbergh, the legendary aviator who had crossed the Atlantic solo just a few years earlier, was a national hero. His young son, Charles Lindbergh Jr., not even 2 years old, was the apple of his eye. But that evening, something unspeakable happened. At around 9 p.m., the family nurse went to check on the baby. The crib was empty. The window was open. Muddy footprints were on the floor, and just below the window outside in the cold, damp night lay a broken ladder. And then there was the note, a ransom note, written in shaky handwriting, filled with broken English. A message no parent should ever read. We have your baby. The world stopped. The news spread like wildfire. The press called it the crime of the century. The Lindberghs were devastated. The public was horrified. The authorities, overwhelmed. Local police struggled. Leads went cold. Rumors filled the air. The Lindberghs even paid the ransom, hoping, praying that their son would be returned. But he wasn't a month past. Then too, and on a bleak April afternoon, hope turned to heartbreak. Just a few miles from the Lindbergh home, in a wooded area off a dirt road, a truck driver spotted something unusual. The police arrived. They found a small, shallow grave. Inside were the decomposed remains of a child. The skull was fractured, the face unrecognizable, but the clothes were familiar. It was Charles Lindbergh Jr. His mother collapsed, entered the FBI the very next day. President Herbert Hoover instructed the Bureau of Investigation, what we now know as the FBI, to take full control of the case. Under the direction of a young and determined J. Edgar Hoover, the Bureau launched one of the most complex manhunts in American history. Their first move was smart: circulate the serial numbers of the gold certificates used in the ransom payment. Every bank, gas station, and business in the region received notices. If any of those notes were used, they would know. But weeks turned into months, months into a year, and then finally a break. The clue at the gas station. It was September 1934. At a gas station in New York, a man paid for a small purchase using a $10 gold certificate. The attendant recognized it. Immediately he had seen the FBI warnings. He jotted down the man's license plate and called the police. The car belonged to a German immigrant named Bruno Hauptmann. He was a carpenter, living quietly with his wife and young child in the Bronx. When authorities searched his garage, they uncovered a bombshell: over $13,000 in ransom money hidden in floorboards and tools. The handwriting experts compared the ransom notes to Bruno's writing. The match was almost perfect. In addition, wood found in his attic matched the exact grain and cut used in the homemade ladder left at the Lindbergh home. The noose tightened. Trial of the century. In January 1935, Bruno Hauptmann stood trial in a New Jersey courtroom. The media swarmed the town. Inside, the evidence mounted: the money in his possession, the wood from his attic, the handwriting, and a web of circumstantial evidence that painted a dark, sinister picture. Hauptmann pleaded not guilty. He claimed he was holding the money for a friend who had since died. He denied ever seeing the Lindbergh baby. He never confessed. But the jury didn't believe him. On February 13th, 1935, Bruno Hauptmann was found guilty of first-degree murder. The judge sentenced him to death. After a year of appeals, his execution was carried out in April 1936. He was strapped into the electric chair at Trenton State Prison and pronounced dead just after 8 p.m. To the end, he claimed his innocence. A nation's wound to Lindbergh. Kidnapping wasn't just the tragedy of one family, it was the awakening of a nation. It changed laws, sparked debates about crime and punishment, and hardened public demand for justice. But for the Lindberghs, none of that mattered. Their son was gone. The fame, the fortune, the legacy, it all meant nothing without the sound of tiny footsteps in their hallway, without the laughter of a child in their home. This was not just a crime, it was heartbreak written into history, a final whisper. Justice may have been served, but a child's voice was forever silent. Let us remember the face that smiled from the crib, the baby whose life ended before it truly began, and the parents who carried that silence for the rest of their lives. Because some crimes do not fade with time, some griefs never die. In memory of Charles Lindbergh Jr., gone, but never forgotten.